What about a solution that is not that popular and it's not quite renounced in the atmosphere nowadays? Information architecture. This can help prevent overload by structuring information in spaces. This is essentially done through the medium of user experience, UX, interface design in such a way as to minimize the chances that the user will be subjected to, particularly on a single screen. Too much information, too much text, too much images, too many messages, etc., or too much choice, too many features, too many options. This is a particular issue on the small screens of mobile devices. Information architecture and design initiatives to help overcome will be most effective and should be based on and support users' natural copying strategies. Just imagine you entering into an online shop and seeing the bunch of items, more than 200 items in your area and category that you just chose. Having you feel overloaded by all of that and not just one particular website and one particular category of your interest. Now imagine having to face all this information around one Google search. That's too much. And of course, a lot of information gets hidden or just not seen because of the multiple pages that you need to navigate in order to find what you need for or what you think you need for. Because also in Google searches, if you do great SEO and SEM, and also now with the artificial intelligence, that's also like a new ranking for this area in marketing. You are also put what's best for the AI, what's best for the Google search, or what is better ranking on top of the pages or on the first 5 pages. And that's what the internet is pulling up to you as the most viewed pages, but that doesn't mean that those are the best content pages that you might find. So perhaps that essentially better content is being hidden on page number 27. And why the internet, or especially why not the search engines, just prioritizes that information that is crucial, information that is more substantial, and not on the pages that are using better SEO, SEM, and the AI ranking techniques. Why not prioritizing what should be prioritized? Why do we have these guidelines on marketing? That doesn't make any sense, right? Because we're Googling things in order to get us informed. But what if this information that is being pulled out first is just thanks to a marketing strategy? Does that feel good for you? Does that give you like some kind of relief every time that you search something that what you're reading is the best out of the best? I think that will be a no for some people, but those are the rules nowadays. And for me, that is like quite wanting experience for a user that just wants to do a Google search that isn't a researcher and just wants like basic piece of information. Why not pulling out the best? Through clear signposting and use of taxonomies, the architecture may help the user to effectively filter their information. Interactive dashboards for presenting filter information streams have been widely adopted as a way of copying with big data. Principles of information design and its newer Siebel information visualization may also be applied to prevent overload. The prescriptions here are typically practical and arguably self-evident, but frequently not observed. A typical set of summary recommendations is to keep the displayed information simple, relevant, and clear. provide supporting and balanced information and make it clear what should be done with the information and how a user can take action based on it. As Floridi in 2014 points out, very technical capabilities are likely first and foremost to produce a greater amount of data. This echoes the early warnings of Postman that when technology increases the amount of available information, control measures intended to help the situation are typically themselves technical, and in turn further increase the supply of information. A specific instance of this is given by Shapiro in 2018 in the specific context of the introduction of web-scale discovery systems in academic libraries. Librarians' efforts at using technology to tame information overload, writes Shapiro, are mostly futile and counterproductive. A better approach would be for librarians to focus on library instruction to improve the information and digital literacies of the users to help them deal with the information tsunami. But why only in the academic field? Why not actually making an introduction to every user that navigates on the internet how to filter and how to prioritize information? Why does this need to be on an academic field only as a proposal? Because the search engines, they want you to search over and over again, but they don't want to educate you on how to search. And if they have any guidelines for use of information and what you need to be aware of, how this kind of guidelines that came forward when the internet was already on our door. So, what would be your proposal for this primary of these private entities? What will be your proposal to them? What should they do in order to teach us how to filter and choose and pick the best information from their search engines? This is not a new idea. In relation to the indexes, bibliographies, and encyclopedias created in the 16th and 17th century, Rosenberg on 2003 writes that it may be that the very devices created to contain information overload are the devices that created in the first place. The widespread use of reviews of books in the new periodicals of the 18th century removed a necessity to read the original but created its own form of overload. While Linnaeus' innovations and documentation increased, however, technical solutions, in terms of more effective information systems, are still recommended. By the end of the 20th century, intelligent agents were being regarded as a useful tool for overcoming overload. Edmund and Morris in 2000 were also talking about that. Filtering and recommended systems based on artificial intelligence are a newer generation of this kind of tool. To extent to which they will reduce and not at the same time add to overload is yet to be seen. Information management and literacy, let's talk about that. An influential and much quoted report, Paul Surkowski noted on the first page that we experience an overabundance of information whenever available information exceeds our capacity to evaluate it. This is an universal condition today. His recommended solution was a national program to achieve universal information literacy, the first time the phrase had been used. Ever since then, there has been a close relation between the problem of information overload and the proposed solution of information literacy. What about lecture comprehension? It's not enough that we can filter information, it's how we process information. So even though we already have a problem of too much information, not knowing if the first pages of every time that I Google something are going to be like the most accurate and of course the best piece of information I can find based on my prompt. And talking about prompts, now we have AI that are filtering the information for us. But even though that we have all that, how are we processing information? Do we have enough lecture comprehension in order to go forward and say like, yes, this is what I was looking for. This is something that I can comprehend entirely. This is something that, yes, I can understand, and then I can pass this information to others. Because it's not only the search of information, it's what we do with that information and what we are spreading to the world. There is a somewhat confusing rate of what might be called literacies of information, of which the most commonly cited are information literacy, digital literacy, and media literacy. These literacies are frequently recommended, particularly in the context of library and information management, as providing personal solutions to overload by improving an individual's ability to control their own information. But can we control the information we are receiving? A typical formulation of this is given by G in a discussion of ways to help college students overcome information overload. Effective searching requires planning, attention to detail, and successful search strategies. Faced with an overload of information, it is important to find out which sources are useful and to discover effective and simple search procedure. This is what this person said in 2010. Such commendable recommendations for good rational information practice may perhaps be naive and doomed to failure in the face of attractions of satisfying and lure of the Google search. But if people have confidence in their information sources, they are less likely to suffer overload even with a high volume of information. We are looking to have that trust between the user and the search engine. But how do we achieve that? Choosing reliable sources is a key aspect of information literacy, especially for dealing with news, recommends, and other authors like Cook in 2017 recommends these aspects of digital literacy and critical information literacy as a way of ameliorating the effects of fake news, while Clarence, Winghall, and Taylor in 2015 recommended for health literacy to help patients manage their treatment. So imagine even in the health aspect, if you have like a critical condition, terminal disease, now you just want pretty accurate and reliable information that can affect you on a first basis. And that's why it's so important to trust the sources. And that's why some people, they just stop seeing news because it was affecting them. And also, we don't know what's biased and what's not anymore. Good personal information management practice has often been recommended as a solution to overload. By taking control of one's information environment, combining the kind of copying strategies mentioned with rather traditional techniques for time and desk management and for delegation. For a detailed example of what this might mean in practice, integrating several of the strategies already noted into a coherent plan for avoiding overload, you can see Horace seen in 2018. A short list of pragmatic solutions is given by the Interaction Design Foundation in 2018 that consists in feeling free to ignore information, feeling free to take action without having the facts, create an information queue and tackle it regularly, filter information ruthlessly, delegate information responsibly, and learn to skim read. The last of those recommendations is a reminder that skimming and scanning have been regarded as a solution to overload for centuries and have been joined over time by its SERPs and abstracts, speed reading, quick reads, microblogs, and the rest, and has been noted there are concerns about reliance of this foreign information access, and as some surmise loss of close reading. But there is little doubt that this is now more than ever a personal information management approach to avoiding overload. Every time that we say control, it's like, can we even control what we eat? Starting from that premise. And now we are trying to manage what we consume in terms of information. Do you think that is plausible? Do you think that we need more instructions on how to shift that? How to shift a great personal information management? Let me know. But as noted previously, time factors are often mentioned in connection with information overload. Most obviously because of the time which has to be taken to deal with any large volume of information, but also sometimes because the need, actual or perceived, for rapid decision making means that the necessary information cannot be processed quickly enough. Perhaps seemingly paradoxically, slowing things down has been proposed as a means of defeating overload. This was first suggested by Miller in 1992, who proposed a strategy for queuing, delaying dealing with at least some information to a less busy time. Wilson in 1995 incorporated the idea of a priority-based information strategy, which also incorporated avoidance, with information categorized as to be dealt with immediately, to be dealt with when time permits, to be filled for use when needed, and to ignore. Queuing as a strategy has been observed by Finn and Augusta in 2017, while the politicians studied by Walgrave in 2017 with its partner commonly adopted a wait-and-see strategy, avoiding immediate action even on relevant information. There are some similarities with the information diet idea of Johnson in 2012 and with the time management aspects of personal information management. Examples of queuing include putting materials into read later areas, and using lists on social media, adopting a policy of always waiting a specified time before acting on information. The read later ideas. Do you have like a bunch of notes on your phone? Like, these are the books that I'm going to read someday, these are the series that I'm going to watch someday, these are the movies that I'm going to watch someday as well. And perhaps this can be something that can be just put once and then forgotten. But what about the apps? If we have like notes and also reminders, that could be like more useful. And lists on social media can also mean the folders. We use like a bunch of folders of information we're saving, and also we are forgetting. How do we make that information safe that can be important for the future come back later? Or are we just consuming and consuming and consuming and just putting everything in folders we will never see? Because that's the thing, like I'm saving things, but since the amount of information that I'm seeing every time I open my app is forcing me not to go back to the information, but rather to actually consume more information and saving more and more and more. So we aren't given that time to go back and see because the platform isn't pulling you up the things you already saved that can be important. So that is something important because people say like, no, it's how you consume. But also these algorithms, they aren't pulling up any previous information. They're just pulling up more and more content because we are also pulling up more content in social media. So it's like a back and forth, a vicious cycle between the platform, the individual, and the collective. More ambitiously, it has been suggested that overload may be prevented by adopting some of the tenets of the slow movement, allowing a mindful approach to information handling. See, for example, Priory and Robinson in 2013. This involved taking control of information, taking time to comprehend and use it, establishing a balance in taking in and using information. Connected with this is the idea of using information to create connected understanding, which will necessarily develop over time, rather than simply processing individual information items. That's what's happening, for example, with Instagram. We have like these blocks, these squares of information one next to another. But are they really connecting with each other? No, those are from different creators, different pieces of content, and most of the cases, different topics. So, where is the connection? Perhaps the platform, perhaps the people or the group of people that are following these content creators. But is there like something more specific that could actually be connecting between each other? Lack of an overall understanding has been noted as a feature of overload. And means for enhancing understanding will be an attitude and actually occur to overload. But we have shifted from the problem of what to save to the problem of what to erase. Something must be deleted or never recorded in the first place, and this was said by Florida in 2014. One way of dealing with the surfeit of information is to forget it or to destroy it. Like so many ideas relating to overload, this is not a new idea. In the 18th century, luminaries such as Samuel Johnson and Edward Gibbon were contemplating the destruction of books as to some degree a good thing. Can you believe that? In the digital age, the issue is made more pressing by the possibility of perfect remembering brought about by the preservation of our thoughts and actions in digital media. Do you remember what you saved last year? Do you remember what you saved just last week? We cannot even remember what we ate yesterday. And now we're pretending that everything that we're saving on those folders are going to be preserved in our minds forever, even though the things that we saved were important. And that's might be a lot. Mayer in 2009 it sold The Virtues of Forgetting and advocates an explicit place for it in a digital world, while Johnson in 2014 and Kluge and Grunow in 2018 recommends careful and thoughtful discarding of information from consideration as a tool for overcoming overload in personal organizational contexts respectively. And look at this. They were often talking about filtering, avoiding, ignoring, and other strategies of in order to face information overload. But now we're talking about deleting, erasing things. Don't you think that will be also like a valid solution for the problem? We're just adding and adding information, but no one is talking about deleting it. But what do you think about this matter? Let me know because I know I may some questions for you, and I would love to see the answers in the comments. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye bye.